Alrighty, welcome back. We are finally on the quarter scale speeder bike build. This thing has been on hold for way too long. If any of you are new to this build, or since it's just been a while, let's do a quick update on what this is. This is based off of a model kit. This is a 1/12 scale model kit. And what I'm doing is I'm taking each piece, taking all the dimensions, and then recreating each piece 3 times bigger, which would then make this quarter scale. And everything that is brown in color is carbon fiber. You can kind of see the carbon on the inside. I 3D printed the shape, took a mold from that, and then from that mold, I made the carbon fiber pieces. So again, all of that's carbon fiber. Everything else is aluminum or steel or brass or copper. And so, for example, these pieces move. Not that they need to, but, they do. And here's a view from the front. You can see some aluminum, some brass, some copper. Those are stationary. Those don't move. Just those move. And then we got these pieces here. So those, that kind of moves. Again, not that it really needed to, but why not? And there are a few 3D printed parts. That part right there, from here to here, is 3D printed. That's aluminum. From here forward is aluminum. On the inside here, the little ribs around there, that's 3D printed. And on the back side view, that part is 3D printed with some metal pieces added for some detail. So just another view of the back side here. And of course, again, all of that is aluminum. If we flip that over, take a look at the bottom side, all of that is just machined aluminum. Again, there's a lot of Sharpie marks that need to be cleaned up. And when it's all done, it'll be all cleaned up. And I'm still trying to decide on the finish, whether I want to paint it or just have it as kind of like a polished metal or maybe stain it. Because I kind of like that look like this, because that's basically Sharpie that I used to lay it out, and then I scrubbed it all off, and it kind of leaves that look behind there, which I kind of like. So I'm kind of thinking maybe just cover the whole thing in Sharpie ink and then wipe it all off with Scotch-Brite or something. Would leave kind of that color. So I don't know. I'm still up in the air about that. But like I said, this project has been on hold for way too long, and I want to get this thing done. The only thing left is the handlebars, the foot peg rest things. There's a rack that goes back here, the seat, and the control panel. So I think now what I want to do is start on the handlebars. I want to get the handlebars done. And then the control panel, seat, and I'll do the foot rests last, I think. So let me get the kit parts out and get my camera mounted. We'll take some measurements, make some sketches, and then start making the parts for the handlebars. Okay, so I cut the parts out for one side, well, for both sides, but I assembled the parts for the right side. So let's just take a look at how the assembly looks, and we'll take a look at the parts. That area right there will connect there. That area here connects here. The end of that hose or tube or whatever that is, I still need to drill a hole to connect here somewhere. But that shouldn't be that big a deal. So we have the throttle grip. Well, I'm going to call it a throttle grip. Who knows what it really is. And I want it to be able to twist like a motorcycle throttle. I think that would be safe to say that would be realistic for a science fiction thing. And I want this lever here to be able to pull back and forth, maybe like on a little detent type of thing. I don't know if it's supposed to pivot here. Like if that whole handle is supposed to be able to pivot back and forth. I think I'm going to make it move, but probably like on a either a ratchet or a friction plate so you can put it in a position and leave it. And I definitely want the whole handlebars assembly to pivot at that point. And to me, that looks like a little spring or shock absorber thing, maybe. So I want it to pivot here and then have some dampening or a centering spring here. So if we take a look at the parts, some of the parts are going to be pretty easy. Like, for example, there's the actual throttle grip. That should be fairly straightforward. And then that goes into that piece right here. That will probably have to be made up of 2 or 3 pieces. This part will have to be a few pieces. I need one end to be a pivot point. That's a separate, that'll probably be 2 or 3 pieces here, an attachment point, and then a pivot for the other end. That'll probably be the most challenging part to do, I'm assuming. And then the hose thing, that should be the easiest part to make. Show you what I want to use for that. This came from something. I don't remember. But yeah, I think that's a perfect choice for that because it's flexible, bendy. That'll be able to move as you move the handlebars. So there's that part. I'll just have to make that end of it for it to connect to. The other end, I'll just drill a hole, put it in. I'll make some kind of a grommet to make it look like it's not just, you know, poked through a drilled hole. So I'll make something that looks good for there. So yeah, I think we're off to a good start. I'm just going to take some measurements, take a look at my materials, and see what I have to work with. So I'll get back with you once I have a better idea of what I'm doing. Okay, so it only makes sense to start with the hardest part first. So I'm going to do this piece right here. And after taking measurements, this is my drawing I came up with. So transferring all of that to a piece of aluminum. I've got a chunk of aluminum here. So I'll cut that out, machine it to shape. And I've got another chunk of aluminum right here. So I'll be able to get both pieces. Okay, so here's that piece cut out and super glued to another piece. So what I'll do now is I will clamp that in the mill and deck off all the flat lines. I'll basically just mill to the line. So again, I'll just clamp it here, mill it to the line, flip it over, and just mill it to those lines, and I'll just have to keep adjusting it to get to the straight lines. So basically what I do is I just clamp it in there, I use a parallel, and then I eyeball it to the line, and then I'm just going to use that to then just machine it down to the line. None of these dimensions are critical. The only thing that matters is that the two parts are the exact same size. I'm not going to record milling all that down. I'll just show you what it looks like when I'm done, ready for the next step. Okay, here's what those pieces are looking like so far. And this is the right one. And they're coming out okay so far, I think. I did mess up on one of these right there. I got a little close to that with the end mill, but I think I can blend that out. I don't think that's a big deal. But and that's on the inside anyways, because that's going to go like that. So that won't even be seen. So the next thing I need to figure out is when you take a look at the parts, there's a recessed area machined into there. So I'm going to have to figure out how to come in here and mill in that recess like that, only nicer. So I'll probably end up using the CNC router, but I don't really know how to use the CAM software that well yet. So what I'll probably do is clamp it down and put the cutter at the various points and mark the coordinates, and then tell it where to go, if that makes any sense. Basically, I have to write the G-code myself. So find that coordinate. Now for the arc, obviously I still have to file that round. I just milled off the corner, but I'm going to have to file that round later. But I'm thinking what I can do is just have the recessed here as like three angles or three facets. So I could find that point and then go here, 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 and then down, and then same thing, like three. And I think that would look fine. I think that'd look good. At this size, I think it'd look close enough to a curve. But I could use the mill, but the angles would be very difficult for me to do anyways, because I'd basically have to be free-handing the cutter on a perfectly straight line at an angle, and I don't think that's going to look good at all. So also I need to figure out what to do here. That's still a little bit sharp. I'll probably put some kind of a clevis in there, something like that. But I don't know if I want to, well, that answers that question. I was going to say slot it so I could put that in there, but there wouldn't be enough meat left to hold that. So I'll probably, what I'll do for this, unless I can find a smaller one of those, I could come in here, make a step, mill a step out of it, and then just bolt that right onto the step. So it'd be setting like that, bolted onto the step. That's probably what I'm going to do, but I'm going to figure that out later. That's a problem for later me. So for now, let me get these mounted in the router and see if I could figure out how to make that work. I'll actually, first, before I do that though, I'm going to cover that whole thing in Sharpie and then scribe in the actual lines that I want. And I'll just be going to the line. Exact dimensions really aren't that critical for what this is. But again, so far, I'm pretty proud of those. Now, the finished product, I mean, that's kind of a cool surface, but that's not what I want. When this is all done, I'm going to sand it all down. I'll probably sand it to 220 and file some, right now all the edges are still sharp. So file it smooth, file some chamfers onto the edges and sand it to 220, and then figure out what color they'll be painted later. So yeah, let me set this up in the router and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so that's what I need to mill. Okay, so that's the piece out of the mill, or the CNC router. And I'm thinking that came out pretty good. And as far as making the curve, let me just show you kind of what I did for that. Like I said before, I was just using the jog function in the software to put the cutter where I wanted and make note of those points. So for that curve, it was basically just a section of straight. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4. So 5 straight lines to make the top arc, and 4 straight, or actually 3 straight lines to make the bottom arc. I know there's an arc function with G code, but I don't know that. And I know I could look it up. However, I just wanted to get this done, and I figured I could do this quicker than it would take me to look up the arc function in G code and figure that out. I've tried using an arc function before, and I struggled with it. So either I was doing it wrong or the reference I looked at was wrong. Probably me doing it wrong because I couldn't figure out what it was telling me to do. But anyways, I didn't want to try to learn an arc function now. I just wanted to get it done because everything else is just straight line. If these pockets were all like C-shaped and S-curved, then yeah, I would have had to have learned the curve function or the arc function. But since everything else is just straight line, this was easy enough, and it came out pretty good. I mean, that looks like an arc. I can't look at that and see 5 straight lines. That looks like an arc to me. So, which by the way, here's the other one after I filed and sanded it. So once you get rid of the shine from all the machining, that's what it's looking like. And again, I filed that back edge, I sanded everything down, and I went over it with some Scotch-Brite. And I think I want to dullin it up a little bit more. So maybe some more Scotch-Brite on that. But that's what that's looking like so far. Also, I think I can take that curve down a little bit more. It's still a little bit thick right here, so I can file that down a bit more. So anyways, that's that curved one there. This is the one for the first little pocket here. And this is the one for that center part here. I'm sure there's a much more elegant way to do it than the way I did do it. I know the right answer is to learn how to use the cam. One of these days I'll learn how to use the cam. For now, this worked. I'm sure I could have been done a lot quicker if I just would have done normal cam like a normal person. But it worked, and I'm happy with it. So right now, this one is done except for the bending. It has to bend out that way here, and then up here back in. Just comparing that to that piece, notice how it bends. It's got to bend over that way and then back in. I need to do some experimenting with this aluminum. What I want to do is cut a piece the same size and put it in a vise and bend it and see how it bends. The last thing I want to do is clamp that up and whack it with a hammer and break it. So I need to do some testing with the bending. Plus, I don't want to bend it yet until I make all of the other parts, just so I can get the angles correct with all the other parts, I think, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. So I think I want to make the other parts before I bend it, is what I'm getting at. Now this, though, does go right there. And right now, I'm just using a little, well, not a little, a 1032 screw. And that'll put that in right there. That's not the screw I'm going to use. Well, it might be. But I want to make a cap to go over it. Either that or turn that screw head down. I want to make something that looks more like reference photos for that head. And I could probably just make a wider washer, mill that flat, and use that. But anyways, like I said, that goes there, right in there like that. It'll be able to move a little bit. But, and again, that gets leaned out and then back in. I'll do that later. I'm thinking this is where I'm going to end this video for here. I spent way too much time on this so far. I really wanted to get this video out 2 days ago, and I wanted all of these other parts done, but I'll be honest with you. These took way longer than I expected, and yeah, that's where I'm at. That's as far as I got in the time that I had. But also, to be completely honest with you, the first 3 or 4 days of the week, I spent finishing the 4 wheels for the Jaguar build. So, yeah, I spent probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 days straight finishing these wheels, getting the tires mounted, and getting these done. And that was a huge weight off my shoulders because these were a pain in the butt. Every part of these was a pain in the butt. And I was really not looking forward to building up 2 more wheels. I had the other 2 done in the previous one. I only had 1 knockoff done. So yeah, finishing 2 more wheels and the 3 knockoffs, but these are now done, and I'm very pleased with how these look. I'm so happy that these are done. So yeah, that's a huge chunk of time knocked off of that Jaguar build. So yeah, for this video, that's all I had time to do. So in the next video, honestly, right now, I don't know if I'm back on the Jaguar or if I'm finishing the handlebars, but either case, it'll be cool stuff. So until then, until next time, as always, thanks for watching.